All right, today we got a 2011 Dodge Charger up on the lift with a 3.6 liter V6. This thing's having issues with torque converter lockup. The customer has replaced the lockup solenoid and the harness in the trans already. They sent it to the dealer. They said it needs a converter, but this customer doesn't have a lot of trust in the dealership that is local to him. They've made some bad diagnoses in the past. So we brought it to us to verify. So far, Chris took this thing out on a test drive, and when the converter is locked, there's a preset number of RPMs. You can have variance between engine speed and transmission input shaft speed, and it failed the test on that end. So what we're going to do here next is I'm going to get the test leads out. I'm going to back probe the wires that go to the torque converter lockup solenoid, zip tie them up out of the way, run them probably up through the window, and go take this thing on a quick test drive and watch what our voltage is when we're commanding lockup. It is pulse width modulated, but it's at a high enough percentage. I should at least be seeing like 12 volts running going to that solenoid. So I'm going to go pull up a wiring diagram real quick, find out which wires I need to back probe, and we'll go get this thing back down on the ground, take it for a test drive, and then I'll at least verify that the TCM is commanding lockup correctly and that we're not having a feed or delivery voltage issue with it. So I went ahead and pulled up the wiring diagrams here on the Zeus. So pin 11 and pin 6 are going to be the two I need to get. 11's TCC, 6 is the common. So if I go move down here, this is the connector on the case of the transmission. So right there's pin 6 and right here is pin 11. So we're going to get that connector pulled off the trans. I'm going to pull it apart, and then we are going to back probe it so that I can plug it back in and have a way to read it while we're driving from the connection at the case. All right, so we've got the connector out here. If you can see here, I've got two probes that I've back probed in. They're just tiny pin ones. I've pushed them through the backside so they're sitting against there. So before we get this all back together, I've got a meter here and it's set up on continuity test. I want to make sure that I'm getting good continuity. So I'm just going to tap this to the end of the lead. The beep means we have continuity. Go to pin 11. We have continuity. So I wanted to check to make sure that we're actually making contact in here before I put this together, because if we're not making contact, it's going to fail the test that I wanted to do anyway. So now that we know that we have continuity, this can go back in, twists, and it locks in place. Now I have 2 points right here where I can hook my test leads to run them up to the car for this test drive. Well, the Charger just got put on the back burner for a sec. We got a service call that this 6 liter is stuck out here with no throttle. We just got out here and fired it up, and we have throttle, but we're going to figure out why the customer lost throttle with it. So we'll get this diagnosed up real quick if we can right now. I mean, it seems to be an intermittent issue, but we'll see what we can figure out on it, and then we'll head back to the shop and hop back on the Charger. It's off the lift, and I've already got the probes wired into the car, so it's ready to go on a test drive. So we're going to take it on a drive here. Get the scan tool hooked up, and we're looking at all of the TCC data, like the duty cycle on it and stuff. And then this meter is hooked to those pins that I back probed on the connector on the trans. So we're going to go take it for a drive here. I'm going to be watching voltage and the duty cycle and lockup percentage on the converter. And I'm watching to see what my voltages are when it's locking up. Now it is pulse width modulated, but it's at a very high duty cycle, so I should be seeing around 12 volts because it's, what, 90-something% duty cycle, Chris?
Yeah, but that's at, like, full pressure.
Yeah.
So it's pulse width, so it may apply at 10% or 20%, so it'll have low voltage to start with, but at full lockup, it should be at 90-something%, so about 12 volts.
Yeah.
If we see close to 12 volts at full lockup, then we know we're getting powered to it in a good ground, which they share the same ground.
So the check engine light has just come on. We are seeing a P0741 code come back, which is what we were diagnosing. Has thrown the code again. I was getting like 3.4 volts occasionally on this circuit. So we're going to want to go back and make sure that we have good connection in that plug still, that those leads hadn't backed out.
But you can do that real quick doing it, well, not while I'm driving, but when we get back and shut the key off, we can do a continuity test across it and see if it's getting continuity.
Yeah.
It'll have some resistance because of the solenoid, but
yeah, we'll do that real quick. But Because I was seeing 3.4 volts occasionally, that's still a really low voltage.
But
we should be seeing a lot higher.
I just watched the tach when it locked into when it's supposed to lock into overdrive, and it did drop some, so it's trying to work, and we're seeing voltage. So I see it being a converter.
Yeah, this I'm not too concerned with yet, because the way we've got these wires ran underneath there, it's possible that it could not be making a good connection. That is a really hard connector to try to back probe while driving.
I don't know though, because I zip tied everything up in there really nice and tight.
Yeah, but if those pins are moving around in that connector, we could still be getting loose there.
Yeah.
So we just shut the car off, and I moved the meter to ohms to continuity test through that TCC solenoid to make sure that we had good connection on these meters leads. I haven't touched them yet, and we are getting continuity through them. So that tells me that we were getting that 3-point-something to 4-point-something volts that I was seeing on the test drive. We actually are getting that to the TCC solenoid. So I want to go back real quick and see if this is supposed to be a 5-volt solenoid or 12. Because if it's a 5, we're working pretty close to where we should be on voltages. If it's a 12, we have a low supply voltage, and I forgot to check that before we left. So we'll check that real quick, and then we'll go from there. So, diagnosing another transmission real quick here. It's a 4L60 that we just installed a transmission the customer supplied. So we're going to watch the RPM here as little Tyler's going to call out what gear the transmission thinks it's in. So we're in first.
Second.
It thinks we're in second. We're for sure still in first.
Third.
All right, that never came out of first. And every time it's telling us it's shifting on the scan tool, this thing is just bucking like crazy.
Still for second.
Yeah, that's not second gear.
Third.
Yep, nope, we are still in first. So it's commanding shifts, and this thing is just staying in first. Occasionally it's jumping to what I think is third gear. Might be second. Yeah, that's not second. We're for sure still in first. So we're going to have to figure out what's up with this, but Junkyard Trans is working perfect if you only wanted first gear. So you guys can see the scan tool there. We're getting quite a bit of slip compared to our desired slip through the TCC. But our voltages, I went and grabbed a different meter because I've had issues with these auto ranging backs before. So the voltage is moving pretty consistently as our TCC duty cycle is being increased. But we are getting quite a bit of slip compared to our desired slip. So we got back from the test drive. And at 100% duty cycle, we're seeing, like I said, 3.9 volts. We should be seeing closer to battery voltage. So something's going on with the wiring on this is what it's looking like. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to back probe and check from the TCC output to the computer through the wiring to make sure we don't have excessive resistance or something through there. Because we should be getting like a 12 volt drop across that solenoid and we're only getting 3.9. So because we have that low voltage, but we're commanding that duty cycle, that explains why we're seeing like 500 RPM of slip between desired and actual out of the TCC circuit on this. So that's going to be our next step and figure that out. I have also heard that there are issues with needing an update on these. I am going to check to see what the software level is in this and if there is an update available for it as well. All right, so the TCM should be under the dash. One thing I've noticed about these chargers is normally a car door opens about this far. They open almost 90 degrees, so that's going to be really nice when I'm trying to work up under the dash. So I'm going to crawl under here and try to find out where the TCM is. I need to get the C2 connector out of it so that I can back probe the C2 connector to the pins I already have under the car. I want to make sure that I don't have a ton of resistance between there and here that's causing this problem. So we got the dash apart here, and someone's been in here before. It's missing screws. Whatever this module is right here is broken off and just laying in the dash. But right there should be our transmission control module. Now this is an NAG1, NAG1 transmission, which is a Mercedes trans, which if you look right there, it actually has Mercedes logos right on the connector. So I'm going to take a guess that that is my TCM. Those look like the right connectors. So I need to pop that C2 off and then back probe, like I said, down to the connector on the transmission case. Alright, so I'm doing a resistance check here, and I wasn't sure which of these two wires is the one that we need. So if I touch the first one here, we have 16 ohms of resistance. So I'll set that down. We'll go to the second one here. Let me get a good connection. There we go. So we have 13 ohms of resistance. Now, I know from my resistance check earlier that we have 3 ohms of resistance on that solenoid in the case. So that tells me that this is the feed wire. This is the wire that's coming out of it. So this is the circuit that we should be testing. We're not testing through the solenoid here. Let me get that clip back on. We are just testing from right there at the pin to the other end of that wire where it goes into the transmission case. So we've got 13 ohms of resistance in that line. Honestly, 1 ohm is too much for this. So right there's our problem. I need to figure out why we have 13 ohms from there to down there. But that's where my voltage is going. And that is why this transmission is not shifting. So now I'm going to take a look at the harness, way it's routed, see if we've got a chafed wire, if it's got corrosion in one of the connectors, if there's another connector somewhere to look for. Anything like that that could be causing this 13 ohms of resistance we have here. But all of our voltage that should be going through that solenoid is being used up to push the circuit through the rest of this resistance. So that's going to be our problem on this car. Should be, at least. I still haven't been able to check yet if it's got the most current software in it, but the customer has said no matter what, if there is an update available, they do want to run it. So we went for another test drive. The code came back, and that is with our overlaid wire. We have a test lead that is currently going around that wire that we're seeing high resistance in, and we're still showing the same problem, which is pretty unusual. When you see a 13 ohm resistance across a wire with nothing on it, that would usually be the problem, but in this case it's not. We are still seeing that problem. So I mean, it's an issue. We're gonna have to figure it out, but we've got there's a bunch of wires in here right now. We've got a test lead, like I said, that's bypassing that, and this is what the ground wire is right now for our trans, and it's back probed into the TCM connector.
And we did check our voltage, vehicle voltage. We are getting
full
14 volts.
Yeah, to the TCM.
To the TCM.
But we're only using like 3 volts across that solenoid, and we should be using like 12. So this one's a weird one. Yay. All right, so we went ahead and removed the test leads. I'm going to go ahead and set the car down, park it outside. Our laptop that does our updates is out getting a repair done on it right now. So as soon as that gets back, since the customer wants a TCM update, we're going to go ahead and do that for him. Then we'll continue diagnosis after we know that we have up-to-date software in this car, because it is doing some very unusual stuff. So before we go any further, we want to make sure that we do have current software. Next up on our list is this 400 big block in this Dodge has a broken bolt in the exhaust manifold. We tried welding it out, it won't come out. It's also got a couple holes that have been helicoiled before. So we're going to end up taking this cylinder head off. We'll take it over to a little building. We're going to machine out the broken stud and these couple helicoiled ones. We're going to get those taken out, and we're actually going to put threaded inserts back in the head. We don't like seeing helicoils on exhaust studs from the heat cycling they get. So we're going to get the holes cleaned up, get them tapped out. We'll put threaded inserts on every one of the damaged ones, and then this head is going to go back in. So I know this video is a little different than how I normally do them. Normally I do one car start to finish over a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it takes. But today I just kind of shot everything we did to kind of show what a day in the shop actually is like, what we're jumping around from place to place.
And why I don't have very many videos out either.
Yeah, just because so many times, I mean, we're one call away from having a road service call that the rest of our day is kind of done fixing that. So started on the Charger with an electrical problem, or a transmission problem, which is an electrical issue. Had to go out on that service call in that 6.0. When we got out there, it was actually working fine. We couldn't get it to replicate the problem. Then I had to test drive that Denali. The customer dropped it off and asked us to put a junkyard transmission in that they supplied. We got the transmission in, and that transmission is bad. When we took the pan off of it, most of the time a junkyard transmissions come with a hole in the pan, they drain them. It had a ton of clutch material in it. We were kind of concerned, but the customer wanted it installed. Took it for a test drive afterwards, and the band is smoked in it. We don't have second or fourth, so it's going from first to third. And, you know, now I'm hopping on that Dodge right there to get that head off. So, you know, our day in the shop kind of jumps around a lot. So if you guys want to see more videos where I show you what we're doing every day all the way through, let me know. Or if you guys don't like this, you want to go back to the content where I focus on one truck like that Cummins out there from start to finish, let me know, because I you know, we'll do it either way. It's all up to what you guys want to see, but this just kind of shows you what a day in the shop looks like and why it takes us a while to get videos out sometimes if we just focus on one thing like this straight through. This truck has been here for quite a while. It's not been a priority project. You know, now we're going to pull the cylinder head off. I can focus on one thing like that if you want. Or if you want to see more videos like this where it's a day of everything we do in the shop through, just let me know in the comments down below. So both of us hopped up in here and we're working on this one right now. Chris is getting the carburetor off.
Technically, I hopped up in here.
Yeah, I've been working through the fender, over the fender. I got the valve cover off and getting ready to pull the rocker assembly out, and then I'll get the push rods out of it. While I'm doing that, he's getting the carb unhooked and getting the intake ready to pull. Yeah, that's why I didn't hop up in there. My back and neck already hurt.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You gonna feel this one later?
I feel it now. There's no need to feel it later.
So I've got the rockers and the push rods out. Chris is just taking a vacuum around the motor real quick to make sure that we're not going to have any dirt falling down in the valley when we go to lift the intake off. Well, it took us about an hour from start to finish, right?
Yeah, probably so.
And we got the head off. So this is a 400 big block, and I actually can't remember the last time I've been inside of one of these, but I forgot how big the bores are on these. I know they make a stroker kit to take this motor from a 400 to a 512. I've always wanted to do one of those. Anyway, so that's looking pretty good. Come over here to the cylinder head though, and it's not looking quite as good. So that one is okay. Helicoil. Threads suck in this one. This one has a stud that's broke off in it. So this needs drilled and a thread insert put in. That's probably gonna need a thread insert. That's gonna need a thread insert. We're going to chase these three out and see how they turn out. If we don't like the threads while we already have it out, we might end up putting inserts in these three depending on how they turn out. Other than that, everything else looks pretty good.
The difference between a thread insert versus a helicoil.
Yeah, so if you guys have never seen a helicoil, it's basically a piece of wire that's coiled up. So you tap this to the next size and you spin this wire in.
But it's not what you want to use on a head for an exhaust manifold because the heat and cool.
Yeah, they don't like it.
Don't hold up to it.
It is basically just a coiled up spring that threads in there and gives you a new surface. It's square cut like a diamond, so that you have a thread surface. But that is not the repair to do on here. What you do is you drill it out to a larger size, thread it, and then you put like a collar insert in there that's got threads on both sides, male and female, and puts you back to the correct size.
And then they get green wildfire on them and they don't.
Yeah.
It's fixed.
Yeah, so that the threaded inserts are a permanent repair that are acceptable for these. To us, we don't do helicoils and cylinder heads. So that has to get fixed. Like I said, the threads look kind of crappy on this one, so we're probably going to fix that one. This one for sure is going to need some work done on it. And we'll chase these other three out with a thread chaser. Not a tap. If you're cleaning threads, as long as they're not damaged, run a chaser through them. And then there's no risk of you accidentally cutting a second set of threads. Also, I just noticed the top on this valve spring is a different color because this also, the rocker is a different shade. So there's been some work in this head before. Just noticed that. Someone has been in here before. I mean, it's, I think, a 72, Chris said. So I doubt that this thing's never had work done to it, but we'll get it fixed up. We'll get it done right. It'll leave here how it should.